Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the next video on membranes and specifically going over understanding what osmosis is. Let's get started on this next video. So before we delve into anything, let's understand what osmosis is. Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules across a selectively permeable membrane from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. So when we're thinking about this, it's just water molecules moving and diffusing through a selectively permeable membrane. Now, they can move through the phospholipid bilayer, and there are also going to be these special transport proteins called aquaporins, and they simply allow for the water molecules to move through the membrane a little bit quicker. Now, in order to understand osmosis and how it works, we have to understand a couple scenarios here. So when looking at osmosis, we're going to look at two parts. We're looking at two different molecules spreading out in a space. I have water and we're going to have salt particles here. So if we start at the beginning of the scenario, they start both in a highly concentrated scenario and they're both going to fill up the space in that box. That makes sense. They're going to diffuse and spread themselves out in that box. The difference here is now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a selectively permeable membrane. Now, in this selectively permeable membrane, small water molecules can go through and pass through, but these larger salt molecules cannot pass through that membrane. And now this is going to change the scenario a little bit because now we're looking at two variables. So water can pass through, but the salt is too large and not permeable. So the question here is which way is the water going to move? The water can fill up both the boxes. The salt cannot pass through that selectively or semi-permeable membrane. And is this current situation at equilibrium? Let's go through and look at it. What we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 water molecules, followed by 2 salt molecules here. So we have 8 water, 2 salt. We have 2 water molecules on this side, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 salt particles. So 8 versus 2 and 2 versus 8. So what we can see is this at equilibrium? And we can see the ratio here. So is this at equilibrium? No, it is not. What we have to do to achieve equilibrium? Let's go through and look at the ratio here. On this side, I have an 8:2 ratio of water to salt. And on this side, I have a 2:8 ratio of water to salt. How do we achieve equilibrium in this system? Well, the system is going to achieve equilibrium by moving the water molecules over here. You're probably thinking, why does that happen? How does that go through and make sense? Let's go back and look at our ratio here. And have we achieved equilibrium here? Well, let's look at the ratios. We have 2 water and 2 salt. And now we have 8 water and 8 salt on this side. So if I look at this and I reduce it, I have a 1-to-1 ratio of water to salt on this side. And on this side, I also have a 1-to-1 ratio of water to salt. So have we achieved equilibrium here? Yes, we have. It's a ratio now of the water to salt particles in order for equilibrium to be achieved. Now, this can be a little bit confusing when we go through and talk about diffusion. Diffusion, we're using one molecule that's going through and diffusing. And now we're talking about 2 molecules diffusing, and now there's a selectively permeable membrane. So here's the rule to go through and remember. The osmosis rule, if you get stuck with any of these problems, is the water is going to move wherever there is more salt, sugar, or solute. So the water is always going to move where there is more salt, sugar, or solute. If you remember this rule, you will get each of the problems and all the questions associated with this right 100% of the time. So that was a short video, but it's introducing a couple concepts here. What osmosis is, do you know what osmosis is, and did you learn this? Did you learn the relationships between water and solutes, salts and sugars, and how they move through the membrane? And did you learn about where water moves in osmotic situations? This is the end of the video. I will see you all in class tomorrow.